Hey, Nish here, and FIFINE are a company that specialise in making microphones. They were kind enough to send me this, the K658 dynamic USB microphone, in order for me to have a go with it. This video is an honest, independent review from my experience of using this microphone, and the company has had no say in what goes into it. I'm going to talk about what features this microphone has, how I found it, including a sound test, and overall whether I recommend it. Taking a look at the microphone, we can see it kind of imitates the famous Shure SM7B that you see on so many podcasts these days. The main difference being that you've got this rather large gain dial to control the volume of the microphone. As a unique design feature, they have some LEDs that fire out of the back of the microphone and onto the included shock mount. As far as controls goes, there's just two other buttons on here, both of which are touch sensitive. There's one on the gain dial to mute the microphone, that also has a LED ring indicator, and then there's one on the other side of the microphone to turn the LED on and off. In terms of I/O, you've got a USB-C port to plug this into a computer, as well as a headphone monitoring jack. Now there is just the one recording mode on this microphone. It is a dynamic cardioid style microphone, and what this means is it's quite suited for recording the voice. Dynamic meaning it takes a bit of oomph to get the passive coil inside the microphone going, which means it's not as susceptible to picking up noise as other styles of microphone, and cardioid meaning it focuses what's in front of the microphone and will reduce the inputs that come out from the side and the back of the microphone. What it wouldn't be suited to is the kind of more ambient sound recording if you want to record the sounds in a room or recording things at distance. Included in the box, you get the microphone, a small fixed style tripod, the shock mount, which I'm using here, as well as an adapter you can use to attach this to certain types of boom arm. I actually managed to put it on this newer boom arm without any modifications whatsoever. Lastly, you've got a USB cable to use the microphone. Now, before I move on to talking about the sound quality and the sound test I did, I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe if you're liking what you're seeing so far. It helps the channel grow and the videos get out there, and I'd really appreciate it. Now, what I thought I'd do as a sound test is compare this to the Samson Q2U, which I recently reviewed on my channel. I'm a big fan of that microphone, so I thought I'd compare these neck for neck. I set them both up at a similar height and then spoke into them at the same time with the same phrases so that we can compare the sound quality. Now, I've not done any editing whatsoever on the sound, I've just changed the gain so that they're roughly equal. So without further ado, here is microphone A, which we can listen to.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Testing 1, 2, 3.
And then microphone B.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so to reveal, the first microphone was the Samson Q2U, and the main thing you'll notice, it was a lot more noisier recording.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Now, I did find with that microphone, you really need to get very close to it to get a nice enough gain to make the recording noise free. So perhaps it's a little bit unfair that I put them both at the same level. Like this microphone, the FIFINE K658, is very happy to have you about a fist's length away, slightly off axis, and that gives you a good gain and a good level of recording. Whereas the Samson really wants to be very close to your mouth, like a vocal microphone typically does. That being said, I think both recordings have quite a similar character in terms of the frequency distribution, although I would say the Q2U does sound a bit brighter. It has a bit more treble in there, so well, it depends whether that's something you want, but I think both of them generally have a good quality, and I wouldn't say one is much better than the other. It's worth considering that the FIFINE comes in at about €100, whereas the Q2U is about 50 to 60 potentially, so I was expecting slightly more quality out of the FIFINE, and you do have that in terms of the noise being reduced, but in terms of the quality of the actual recording, the fidelity, I found it to be quite similar. But anyway, do let me know what you thought of these two recordings in the comments below. Let's move on to some general pros and cons, however. Now, first pro is that, as I mentioned from the sound test recording, I think you get a pretty good, fairly low noise recording out of this microphone. It's not super outstanding, I'm not blown away. The build quality is decent, and I like that they've included the shock mount with that, because that's not usually an accessory you'll get. I do like the fact that it's USB-C, because a lot of electronics these days actually come with other older USB standards, and for me that's quite unforgivable, so props to them for including that. And lastly, the LED RGB thing, it's not usually the thing I like to look for. I'm all about the understated look of technology. I'm not looking for flashy things, but I will say it's rather tasteful. It's been done nicely, and I think it adds a little bit of intrigue about the microphone. As far as my very small cons list go, there isn't much to complain about with this microphone. I think it does a good job overall. What I would say is I wouldn't necessarily agree with the decision to have the buttons touch sensitive. They're quite twitchy. I mean, a couple of times when I was changing the gain dial, I accidentally brushed the mute button and then the microphone was muted, and it took me a moment to figure out, oh right, I accidentally muted it. So I maybe would have preferred physical buttons there, but it's certainly not a deal breaker. It's just a minor gripe that I have when using it. Now, the microphone market is kind of incredibly saturated, and without having tried everything, it's hard for me specifically to say where the K658 stacks up in comparison. What I would say in general is that I can definitely recommend this style of microphone, which is a USB dynamic cardioid style microphone, which I say a lot. As I talked about in my Samson Q2U review video, if you're looking to do home recordings and you don't particularly have the best sound treatments, this kind of microphone is going to give you a much better recording than your typical USB condenser style microphone like the Blue Yeti. For me, this doesn't quite make me want to get rid of my Samson Q2U, and the main reason for that is just the fact of how versatile the Samson Q2U is. I'm a big fan of having tech that has multiple functions, so I don't end up with a huge pile of different gizmos and gadgets, and so the fact that I can use the Q2U both with an audio interface, my loop pedal, and also computer makes it really attractive to have in my arsenal. That being said though, I am impressed with this microphone. I'm certainly going to use it for some videos while I have it. Okay, so that is everything I'd like to say about the FIFINE K658 microphone. In general, it's a solid microphone. It doesn't do anything wrong for me, but it also doesn't blow me away in any aspects. So make of that what you will. It's a solid microphone, I think, that can give you some decent sounding recordings without too much effort involved. So I hope this video has been useful. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments. Thanks again for FIFINE for sending over the microphone. Subscribe for more to the point content, and I'll catch you in the next one.